Alright, in today's video, I will be showing you how to edit pictures in Lightroom using the iPad, importing the raw files from your camera. Right, I have a 5D Mark II here, which I use it to photograph a coffee. This one, actually, which I'm gonna drink. And I will be using the new iPad Pro, right? Regular new iPad Pro. And this very important device here, right? Which is just a USB-C to regular USB with without losing the USB connector where you can also charge at the same time. So I'm gonna plug my charger here to charge the iPad while I edit my picture. And I took off the memory card from the camera, right? And I'm going to put here in this SD card compact flash card reader. It's regular, pretty old-fashioned USB, regular USB. I'm gonna plug it here, and then I'm just gonna plug that into the iPad as well, right? So this is what happens when we plug in the iPad. I'm gonna be using the Apple Pencil as well, right? Device connected. Please continue to import photos from the connected device. So I just tap continue. You can see that the Lightroom for the iPad has the ability of reading raw files. Okay, I have this picture here that I took. I'm gonna add to a new album called Coffee. All right, and I'm just gonna select the pictures I want to import. This one, this, and that, right? And I'm just gonna hit import, which is right here. So it's copying the photos to the iPad right now. I personally have the ability of syncing with Adobe Creative Cloud disabled. I don't want to sync that for now, right? And I will show you in this video the great potential of the iPad Pro as a raw editing device, right? I can keep them on my memory card. I can now safely disconnect. I can tap here. First, let me just go here on settings, gesture, shortcuts, and show the touches. So as you can see what I am doing, right? Now the album Coffee has these 9 pictures, and I'm just going to do the regular flow. I'm gonna choose the best one. And I have the ability of going here and rating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars for the pictures, following the same workflow that I would follow on a desktop Lightroom, right? This one has a 2. This one has also a 2. If you double tap, you can see the information about the picture, right? EXIF data. If I just do one tap, I can full screen that. It's pretty useful for masks. If I tap here on the information, I can cycle between the information. Now, if I double tap again, maybe only on the editing mode. If I double tap again, I can see the histogram, right? So I go back here to my ratings, and I will just choose the best one. The camera was on a tripod. I took the exact same shot, just cycling between aperture and speed. You can see the ISO is 9 on this one, 13 on this one, right? I mean the aperture, not the ISO, right? And let's go straight into this. Let's pick the best one. Let's pick the one we think is the best one. I believe the best one is this one. So I'm just gonna give it a 5 stars and enter into the editing mode. Right here, if we click here, we can have access to the curves, right? And you can see how responsive this thing is. So I like an S tone curve or curve, right? With a little bit more here, maybe less, maybe more. I want to see the reflection here on this spot. One tap, go back. Now I can regularly change the exposure, remove a little bit from the blacks. If I double tap, I can see the histogram, which is pretty important because I don't want to rely on the brightness of my monitor for that. It's too much contrast. I would reduce just a tiny one. Add some shadows. I found this reflex here pretty interesting. I want to keep that, right? If I remove the blacks, I get rid of that, and I don't want that. So I think if I double tap any slider, it resets to the default position, right? So I'm okay with the blacks. I can see here on the histogram that it's lacking a little bit of white. So let me just drag the exposure to the right just to move everything to the right a little bit, because the histogram actually ends here. A little bit of more contrast does that with the histogram, which is also nice. I'm not being 100% histogram oriented here, but I usually like to use the histogram as a guide for my editing. So just a little bit more of exposure. Now the color, I think this one is too much yellow. I know that this towel is white, so I can safely get the picker and adjust the white balance according to this. But personally, I like the pictures a little bit more hot, so this is what I'm gonna do. I think the tint also deserves some of these, right? You can see saturation, pretty easy if you wanna do color cutouts, which is exactly what I'm gonna do in this picture to show you the editing power of this thing. So let's keep this as is. I would like also to crop a little bit because it's misaligned, and I can always use the lines. So you can see when I'm doing the crop, you can see this line here at the edge. There is a line here and another line there, right? A trick that I usually do is reducing the crop so as I can put some things I want in, let me cancel that, just to explain better to you. So I just reduce this to the edges of the glass, like that. And now I can use them as a guide to make things vertical, right? After I do that, I can restore the size. But I'm just using the lines as a guide, all right? I would like to remove a little bit of that, and this comes here. So you can see that everything is in place now. Done. I can also go here on optics, remove chromatic aberration, and enable or disable lens corrections. This picture was taken with a 5D Mark II and a 100mm macro lens. So the lens is pretty decent. The geometry, you can choose the distortion amount. I would always recommend turning on constant crop so it does the effect and crops the edges for you. And at any time you want to roll back, undo something you did, you just tap here and then you go back and forth, right? This is the undo and this is the redo button. So for the tail, this picture was taken with an ISO 125, so we don't need to do any noise reduction here, maybe just a little bit, but this is actually not noise. This is the coffee that was hot, so it is sweating on the glass. Same with these things here, right? So it's good. It's good that we have that effect. We can see that no noise reduction is needed, but if I decide to apply noise reduction, you can see how fast it applies, right? No noise reduction needed. Actually, I would do the opposite and apply a little bit of more sharpening here, right? So on the color, we can also have, and this is my favorite part, the selective editing. So with the selective editing, you can, per color, change the amount of hue, saturation, and luminance. I believe this picture is too yellow, too orange, right? So I can go here on the oranges and remove that or oversaturate that. I can also change the hue, right? This, when slightly done, can become a little bit interesting depending on the subject you have. So one thing that I personally like to do is to reduce the saturation of every single color that is not in the picture, right? This color, this picture has no magenta. This picture has no greens, for example, right? So for a cleaner output, I usually like to remove colors that are not part of the picture. This is personal opinion. I believe this makes it more interesting for viewing, right? This is me. This picture, as you can see, has lots of red, orange, and yellow, right? You can even see by the histogram, blues here. One thing is that when we do that, it does not update the histogram, right? So this is post-editing. The histogram is interpreted before that. So on the oranges, I would like to keep it as is, and I'm gonna do a color cutout around the coffee cup. So maybe add a little bit of more luminance on the oranges, a little bit less hue, right? and a little bit more of saturation in there. Now, one of my favorite part is the selective editing, which you can locate by this button here, right? So here I can add a mask, and there are lots of interesting ways to do these selective things. One of them is just getting the brush and just painting everything, right? In this case, I would like to keep all of these things in black and white and only the coffee cup in color. The smarter way to do that when you have a single subject is not doing this brush, but the radial one. The radial one is interesting because on the computing side, it processes less things than a bunch of keystrokes. So I just get that. I do this, all right? And I invert the mask, color, saturation, and boom. Now that I have most of my picture black and white, I can go and do the manual one just on the edges, right? One thing that you will notice when using the Lightroom Mobile with the Apple Pencil is that it reacts to pencil pressure. So if we just do this very, very light, you see, I'm barely touching I'm just using the Apple the pencil's wave right here. I'm barely touching the screen. I'm basically doing that, right? Just this is the screen. I'm just letting the pencil on its own wave, so you see what it does, right? Now, if I put some more pressure, which is I'm gonna do now, look what happens. This is gorgeous for masks because you can see the screen and what you're doing at the same time. It's not like a regular Bamboo or Wacom tablet that you only have the black canvas where you write and then the result is reflected on the screen. Some tablets from Wacom, they actually have the screen for you, but they are way more expensive than an iPad actually. So let me get rid of this and let me add a new one. And I'm going to paint just the outside of the mask. Now, one very interesting thing is that with the new Apple Pencil, if you double tap, eraser. If you double tap again, brush. So it keeps cycling between the brush and the eraser, which is very interesting to do things like this. And then get the eraser and do that. All right. So let me erase all of this. I'm just going to get, here you can control, of course, the size, the feather, which is, it took me a while to realize this because it's non-linear. From 100% to 20%, right? Or 5%, it's a scale. From 4% to 1%, you have to drag way more, right? Because it's the fine adjustment. And here is the flow. The flow is how strong the pen starts and how soft it ends on the same touch. So I usually like to select these specific configurations here, a little bit smaller, right? And then we start. I have the saturation already applied here. So everything I actually paint is going to be transformed into black and white. It's up to me if I want to decide if the cup will also be black and white or not. I actually have the eraser selected. That's why I was not seeing anything. Notice that the saturation slider here on the left side is still on 0. So I have everything on 0 on this selective editing mask. That's why I am seeing the red mask here. From the moment I choose an effect, the mask disappears and only the results of the mask appears on the screen, right? So you can see that it is actually applying this saturation to wherever I select, right? So I usually like, when I want to fine adjust the mask, I like to put it on 0 just to see the red spots, right? And it's not hard to do, as you can see. I can just do some strokes with the pencil actually, right? And I don't need to cover the whole thing because this other part were already covered by the radius mask, all right? So saturation minus 100. I actually like to keep a little bit of glow on the area that the coffee is inside, not only so I use the pencil pressure for that, right? You can see this light bulb here, right? I just keep it a little bit. So there and there, it's almost therapeutical to do that. It's very, very satisfying, right? So a little bit out here, and this is our final effect. If we apply done, I can see the result, right? Now, at any time, if you want to see how the original picture was, you can tap and hold. So if you tap and hold, you will see how this picture was taken originally. The raw file looks like that. All right. And if I let it go, I can see the results. Now, if Lightroom works with a non-destructive editing process. So at any time, if I want to edit the mask, right, the color mask that I did, the original cutout, for example, I want to erase this and let the color cut out. I mean, I want to paint this. No, I actually want to erase this and remove the color cutout from this area. I can do it any time, and then I do it again, right? So Lightroom is non-destructive. Everything you do here gets saved into a history where you can roll back at any time. All right. So let's go back to the general editing, and now we can safely edit or remove the color our masks are applied, right? I can actually increase the exposure a little bit more. Do this with the shadows. You can see that my editing is not in real time anymore. And this is because Lightroom is already loading lots of things that you did, especially the selective mask. So, but it's okay. This is a raw file, right? It's not that light, and it's responding pretty well. It wouldn't respond faster in a regular computer. I like the pictures really washed. And here on the effects area, I can add some vignette, black or white. I like the black one. If I tap once, I can see in full screen, right? If I tap and hold, I can see how the original file was. You can see that this editing was pretty cool and it's ready to go. At any moment that you were happy with the editings, you can click here and you can either export to camera roll, export to files. On files, you have all the support from Dropbox, Google Drive, whatever. And then you can export this file to one of the destinations that you have in your DSLR output. I have a folder for that in my Google Drive. Coffee, right? Done. I will create this folder. You should create the folder. Anyway, I will put here in the DSLR output. Oh, it created the folder. Save. And now it's rendering and exporting the picture. I hope this was interesting for you. I hope you learned a little something with that Lightroom editing, right? And I see you on the next video. I hope this becomes a series, and I'm very happy with the result of editing things on this thing here. It's very, very powerful. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you liked, and leave a comment. Bye-bye.